Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. We got a lot to talk about that happened last week in USC athletics. A lot coming up this week, especially with football coming off of a big win at Nebraska and basketball starting tonight and tomorrow. So a lot to get into. So let's get in all of it. But before we do, be sure to follow me on social media at CrashLit. That's where you can see what I'm going to, what I'm at, and what I'm posting about. Be sure to be sure to subscribe to Behind the Caution Tape wherever you get your podcasts. We should be pretty much everywhere. And if you're into the video version, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at CrashLit to see what the background looks like and everything here in my studio, especially with the background I got with all the SC posters here behind me. And one other thing, be sure to catch me on Sundays and Tuesdays on the USC channel at the Voice of College Football, and Wednesdays on wearesc.com, where I host with Scott Trader. Finally, before you get into it, be sure to, if you like me and you like Newport Beach, get your Newport merch. Go to Newport, spelled without the vowels, .co/CrashLit, and use the promo code Newport NWPRT50 at checkout for 10% off. So now let's get into USC's. So start with football, and we'll start with USC's win, 21-17 win at Nebraska on Saturday. So it was really just kind of a tale of two halves for the Trojans in this game. First half just saw USC struggle and just not be able to get anything done. But then the second half, I thought they pulled it together better, especially just with how they played. I mean, Jade Mayava, especially utilizing his legs more, which is something that I've been saying that Lincoln Riley and this offensive staff need to be using with Mayava, especially with Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders out right now. So really USC's options are limited. And while King Miller's definitely been a spark at running back, especially as a walk-on who most certainly deserves a scholarship, he's still just obviously not the same. And he's going to face some good defense, especially Iowa and Oregon are going to be two really strong teams known for their defenses. So USC needs to just, do some other creative things to make it, especially when the run game is working. That's how you win in the Big Ten. Like, I think Lincoln Riley, I think he's a great offensive mind, but he does sometimes get a little impatient with the run game. And we saw that in the past years with both Marshawn Lloyd in 2023 and Woody Marks in 2024. So I think he really needs to use it and stay patient with it, especially with a guy like King Miller, who's still relatively new to the college game. Just have some patience, I think, is the key, especially on nights when, your receivers are struggling to get open, your top receivers are struggling to get open, and, just sometimes there's Mayava was struggling a bit with passing, went 9 for 23 and threw an interception, but did have a rushing touchdown as well. So did show with his legs, but I still think you need to utilize Mayava's dual threat ability, especially since that's the reason you made the switch from Miller Moss to Jade Mayava at this point last year. But still, a win's a win. Didn't look pretty, but sometimes, obviously, you were going into a tough, hostile environment. It was the blackout game. It looked pretty cool on TV, I do have to say, from watching the game. But it was still really just, happy USC got the win. But obviously, you got to now figure out how to, keep going and just not have another game like this, especially just how the team is looking. And obviously, Elijah Page was back, but Alani Noah did go down. Hopefully, Killian O'Connor's back. And that has been something that's been interesting. Even despite all these just injuries to the O-line, just USC is still playing pretty consistent. So I think that's super impressive. But really just USC needs to just have a solid game against Northwestern. It's a good opponent to do it. They shouldn't be as strong as the Huskers, but the Wildcats are still a good team under David Braun. So I'm really excited for this game. It's a parents' weekend game, so my parents are going to be coming up to it. And so and it's on a Friday this year. But before we do get into all that, I do want to talk about just USC. Now sits at 6-2 overall, 4-1. They still have an outside shot at a spot in the playoffs. Obviously, long shot, but really the big test is going to be that Oregon game, but you got to take care of the game that's coming up now. And they moved up to number 20 in the AP poll, number 21 in the coaches poll. The first CFP rankings come out tonight. So it'll be interesting to see where USC lands and all that and how they look. So I'm really interested to see that. And USC kicker Ryan Sairi was named the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. And he has been really impressive to watch, especially considering as a walk-on too, who wasn't even supposed to start, and he's filling in for the injured Caden Chittenden, who transferred from UNLV to take the kicking, be the place kicker for the Trojans. But I thought he's been really impressive. He also, I think, is someone who earns a scholarship. And I really we made this point on on Voice of College Football last night. I made it with Matt Zemek and Ethan Inman. Was that he just talks about how he doesn't he doesn't get too high, celebrate because he's just like the delivery guy doesn't celebrate when he finishes the job. And I just like that he has that just, do your job mentality. He doesn't just, he doesn't, ride the highs too high and he just stays really even keeled. So it's really impressive to see how just, not just, obviously I like that he's just, out, he's clearly in this for the team, but also just like how humble he is about it and that he's just, he's just focused on his job. I do like that he has sort of that Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, do your job mentality. So USC will face Northwestern on Friday night. That'll be at 6 p.m. on Fox. The Wildcats are 5-3 overall in the year, 3-2 in Big Ten play. So USC needs to just play much better than they did against Nebraska and just not have be a tale of two halves, especially since Northwestern is a good team, but I don't see them being as good as Nebraska. But still, obviously, it's going to be just definitely an interesting game. So that's pretty much my thoughts on what's coming up with USC this week. So excited for this next to be back in the Coliseum after a month off and first time in 3 weeks at a USC football game since I was at Notre Dame. That was my last game I was at. And before we move on to basketball, I do want to talk about that the Iowa game will be at 12:30 p.m. on November 15th. So it'll be on either CBS or Big Ten Network. That is yet to be determined. But it's a pretty much fans. You can start planning for homecoming, which will be that game. So excited. That'll be another exciting game to have on the schedule this year. So let's move to men's basketball, who has their first game tonight. I'm super excited to be going to the game. It'll be at 6:30 on Big Ten Plus. And then they got their second game this week, which will be on Sunday, also on Big Ten Plus at 3 p.m. So I think USC, obviously, they're without top recruit Elijah Arenas, but they still have a lot of talent, especially around Chad Baker-Mazar, who I'm super excited to see. Jerry Easter, the second, also looks like an exciting player to watch. Rodney Rice, who should be cleared to play tonight. He's been dealing with some shoulder injuries. That's why he didn't play in either of the exhibition games in October. But I'm still really excited to see what this team has. And I think Eric Musselman is really trying to get fans excited this year. Obviously, you got to win, but I think just he's got to, the team's got to be exciting to watch. And so I'm really excited for it. It's going to be, obviously, Arenas is out, which is definitely a blow, but I'm still think, and even though it is another new look team with the lone scholarship player being returning as Terrence Williams II, I've said this point before, but I think it's worth repeating. Yes, it's a new look team. Obviously, I get that, for fans, it's harder to connect with, the players if, they're constantly turning over and they're basically just 1 year rentals. That being said, though, I think last year's team was a lot older. And then also, you probably knew a lot of those guys. A lot of those guys were just, Musselman just had to just piece together a roster at the last minute because after Andy Enfield left relatively late in the cycle, in the coaching change cycle, like right after the season ended, Musselman didn't have time. He basically just had to piece together a team because pretty much after he's introduced, it seems like he had one meeting because he said he planned to talk with the team. I mean, I know when I covered his press conference, he talked with Isaiah Collier immediately afterwards. I saw it. It was made me wonder, was Collier going to come back? Which didn't happen. That being, however, then pretty much everyone except Harrison Horney went out the door. So pretty much last year was they just had to piece together and get who they could. But this year, because Musselman's been here, yeah, it's tough. It's a new look team again. But at the same time, I'm excited because he's had time to recruit these guys, time to get the guys he more wants in the door. And I think that's what you're seeing with getting guys like Chad Baker-Mazar from Auburn, Ezra Alzar from Utah, Rodney Rice from Maryland, and then obviously the recruits they got coming in. So I'm really excited for this team. I think this team's going to be better because these are guys Musselman has probably been more intentionally targeting. So I think it's going to be another team. But USC does need to play really well and get fans excited about the product on the court if they want fans to keep coming back. Especially because next week too, they do have a big game at Intuit Dome, which I think would be a really cool game for fans to want to go to. But you definitely need to get them excited this week with the two games you got at home at Galen Center. Move to women's basketball, who has their first two games of the year. They'll start tomorrow night against New Mexico State. That'll be at 7 p.m. on Big Ten Plus. And the second game of the season will be against ninth-seeded NC State on Sunday at noon. That'll be on ESPN. It is the Alley tip-off at Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. So USC is number 19 in the AP poll, number 16 in the coaches poll, and they'll be without Juju Watkins this year after she tore her ACL. And it sounds like, and obviously they have a lot of exciting players coming this year. They got London Jones, Kennedy Smith, Jazzy Davidson. But I'm really excited to see how this team plays still. I think they're still going to be really good, but they need to dominate the Aggies. And then on tomorrow night and then on Sunday, they need to prove they can go up against one of the best teams in the country in NC State. And Wes Moore has done a terrific job with the Wolfpack since he's been there. They're coming off a Sweet 16 appearance and split the ACC championship this year. So they're a good team. There's a reason they're going to be their preseason number 9 in the AP poll. So I'm really excited to see this matchup and just see how USC looks. And it's going to be the first of some of their big tests this year. And I think it's going to give fans an idea really early on of what this team is capable of and obviously what they can improve on. So I think I like that Lindsey Gottlieb is scheduling very aggressively very early in the season, especially some of these big neutral site games that really do get fans super excited for the season. So we'll move to women's volleyball, who continues to be on a tear. They're on a 6-match winning streak. And they beat UCLA 3-0, 25-23, 25-23, 25-20 on Wednesday, with Adanya Famuina leading the way with 16 kills. London Weege and Danny Thomas Nathan having 1 ace each. Mia Taverdi had 4 blocks. Reese Messer had 42 assists, and Messer also led with 13 digs. And then all 3 sets were close, including multiple lead changes in the first 2 sets. The third set was also tight, but USC never surrendered the lead in it. And it was really an exciting game, especially after the Trojans got swept in Westwood about 2.5, 3 weeks prior. So it was really exciting to see them bounce back and just continue to just play their best volleyball right now. And then a big thank you to Julie and Felice for inviting me to sit courtside for the final set of that match. It was really great to just be that close for the action. The Trojans then went on the road on Saturday and won at number 20 Minnesota 3-2. Scores were 19-25, 25-22, 23-25, 25-15, 15-12. So Weege led with 25 kills. Messer had 3 aces. Famuina, Leah Ford, and Messer all had 5 blocks each. Messer had 54 assists, and Galatrubin and Weege each led with 12 digs each. So the Gophers controlled most of the first set. The next 2 sets were pretty evenly matched, and then USC just took it to Minnesota in the 4th set. And then the 5th set was a nail biter till the end. So it's really impressive to just see USC just grit out again a very good Big Ten opponent in Minnesota. The Golden Gophers under Keegan Cook have been really good since he got there a few years ago. So another great win for USC as they just are really playing their best ball, and I think have a shot to be really good this year. And I think it's just obviously they've had some couple tough losses to start, but I think they're turning it around. And as they head into the back half of conference play, I think they just got to keep this momentum going, and they're looking really good, I think, right now. So they sit 17-5 overall, 8-4 in Big Ten play, moved up to number 17. And London Weege was named the Big Ten Player of the Week, and Reese Messer was named Big Ten Co-Setter of the Week. So it's impressive award, especially for Weege, who came into college after skipping her senior year of high school, and Messer, who just came in and just really took command and basically quarterbacking the offense as the setter and just really having a strong command on the court. It was really, from the start, seeing how she's just been running the offense has been super impressive. So up next for the Trojans, they're back home on Thursday night at 7 p.m. when they take on Northwestern, who's 15-9 overall, 5-7 Big Ten play, at 7 p.m. on Big Ten Plus. So a lot of Northwestern around in town. So wouldn't be surprised if the volleyball team ends up at the football game since they play UCLA the day after it. So very Northwestern-y weekend for USC. And then Trojans then go to Washington on Sunday, but that game will be on Big Ten Plus at 2 p.m. The Huskies are 10 and 12 overall, 5 and 7. So USC needs to be ready for the Wildcats and just not have a letdown. I know I've said that before against some of their they've had big ranked wins and they've proven it, but they got to keep doing that. Especially when you play these good teams, it's easy to have an emotional letdown and either let the team stick with you for a bit or even let them beat you depending on the caliber of the opponent. But USC needs to, not let that happen. And then as for Washington, they need to be ready for the UW trip. Even though the Huskies have been struggling since USC played them 2 weeks ago, USC did win in in 4 sets, but USC just needs to be ready to come and be ready to play. So soccer now. So we'll move to soccer, whose season is likely over, and it'll likely finish with a 7-3 record after they lost in the first round of the Big Ten tournament to Northwestern. They lost 1-0 on Thursday in West Lafayette, which is hosted by Purdue for the tournament. Northwestern got a goal in the 85th minute by Megan Norkett, who scored on a breakaway. And USC did hold percent for 58% of the match and did outshoot the Wildcats 17-12, but just couldn't get a goal. And that's definitely just tough to just see when you just kind of outplay an opponent. Just have statistically beat an opponent in pretty much every facet of the box score except the one that matters, which is the goals. But Phoebe Carver had 4 saves in goal, her first start of the year. Could not find an explanation for why Bella Grust, who has started every game this year, did not play. It was unclear if it was due to injury or what, but I tried to go back, watch it, and there was just nothing about it. All they said on the TV broadcast was that she was out, and there was nothing reported about it. So definitely an interesting development there. But as it stands right now, USC season is likely over, and it's just definitely a tough way to see it end. Just after all the momentum and hype going into the season, especially with them starting the year in the polls as the preseason number 5, and then had the ribbon cutting for the new Rawlinson Stadium opening this fall. So yeah, obviously a lot of excitement, especially the easy. I mean, they had the easy start to the schedule, but just being at home too for all of conference play. So don't get me wrong, I'm hoping USC gets a bid, and obviously the Big Ten's a good conference this year, but it's hard to see them making the NCAA tournament with a 500 overall record. So men's water polo is now likely to stay at number 1 after taking it last week and got 2 big wins at home this weekend. So they won against number 4 Cal 12-9 on Saturday. Robert Lopez Duarte and Mihalio Vukazic each led with 4 goals each, and Charles Mills had 7 saves in goal and played the whole game. So USC struck first and led most of the way. Cal did take the lead at the end of the third before USC scored 4 unanswered goals in the fourth quarter to win it. And then the following day, they won against number 3 Stanford 14-9. Luke Nelson had 3 goals to lead the way, and then Mills and Bernardo Herzer had 2 saves each. They each played 16 minutes of the game. Stanford was up 6-3 at half, but USC went on a furious 11-3 scoring run in the second half to put the Cardinal away. And by beating both Stanford and Cal, USC has clinched at least the number 2 spot in the MPSF tournament, which will be hosted by Stanford. And UCLA, who's also 4-1 in conference play, as their only remaining game in MPSF play. That game will be on November 15th, and this is how USC ends the year up as part of a 4-game homestand before heading up to the farm. So USC up next, so before they face the Bruins, they host UC Santa Barbara, who is 16-12 for a non-conference matchup this Saturday at 1 p.m. You can watch that on overnight.com. And USC can just use this game to just stay ready and to prep for the season finale against the Bruins. So now we'll move to women's golf, who had their final tournament of their fall season. So they were at the East Lake Cup in at the East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta. They finished second stroke play, going three over par of the four schools on day one. So Oregon was number one, scoring even. USC at three over par. Third was Northwestern at 10 over par, and Florida State came in fourth of four with 11 over par. Individual scores were Sarah Hammett finished in tied third at even. Kylie Chong, Elise Lee, and Jasmine Koo finished one over par and tied sixth. And tied 12th was Catherine Park going two over par. So on the second day with match play, USC fell 4-1, with Jasmine Koo being the lone Trojan to win her matchup. With the following day on day three for the consolation matchup, USC beat Florida State 4-1 to take third place, with Catherine Park, Sarah Hammett, Jasmine Koo, and Elise Lee winning their matchups. So up next, that concludes the fall season for women's golf. And up next, they'll be taking place in the Battle of LA against UCLA on January 23rd at Rancho La Quinta Country Club. So I'll bring you more of that as it rolls around in the new year. We'll move to swim and dive real quick, whose men's program is 1-1 so far, and women's is 2-1. They face Arizona. They'll go to Arizona on Friday at 1 p.m. and then at number 3 Arizona State on Saturday at 11 a.m. So I'll bring results on that next week. Men's tennis sent its players down to the Hagedorn Hidden Duel hosted by University of San Diego from Thursday through yesterday, and it was unclear who participated there. If I find more info, I will get to it. But up next, USC will be sending its players to two events. Not sure who's going where. When I find out, I'll bring you more of that next week. So the IT Conference Masters Championship in San Diego, that'll be from November 6th through 9th, and the ITA Sectional Championships in Malibu on those same dates. Women's tennis had Simone Kay and Danny Burrell take part in the Casey Dennis Rizza Classic in Rolling Hills from Thursday through yesterday. And up next, they also have the ITA Masters Championship in San Diego from November 6th through 9th, which Eugenia Zozava will attend for singles, and the ITA Sectional Championships, which will be in Seattle on those same dates, with Krisha Mahendran and Jenna Hassam going to play for doubles, and Mahendran and Imi Haddad will play in the singles. So cross country finished 18th of 18 at the Big Ten Championships in East Lansing on Thursday, which was hosted by Michigan State. So Sydney Nodal finished 124th with a time of 22:20.4. Jacqueline Duarte finished 149th at 23:07.9. Haley Spoden 24:10.8 at 160th. 164th is Isabella Duarte at 24:29.4, and 165th was Lucia Ribali, 24:34.6. It's a tough overall finish, but does just show how good the Big Ten is in cross country. So up next, USC will head to Sacramento for the NCAA West Regional Championships. That'll be on November 14th at 9 a.m., hosted by Sac State. So I'll bring you results on that and talk about more next week. So baseball had its fall ball action where they played UNLV on Saturday in a scrimmage. 2 games. The first game they won 4-2. Unsure the score in the second game. And then men's volleyball had their first tournament of the year, which they went in their fall tournament 1. So they went 1-1 in it. They beat CSUN 21-25, 25-14, 26-24, 25-29, and then they lost to UCI 25-15, 25-27, 25-19, 25-16. So USC will then host Vanguard and UC San Diego on November 15th in their second fall tournament they will host this year. They'll also take part in the UCLA fall tournament. That'll be November 21st and 22nd. The schedule does now appear to be released, but they haven't announced anything online. As it stands, USC's, assuming this is all correct, obviously subject to change. I'm waiting for an official announcement on social media before I talk any further about this. Our first match set to be against Dominican on January 9th. And then they'll also play new MPSF member Jessup. And then they will also appear to have a couple matchups against non-conference matchups against at Honda Center. I think possibly I saw something against Hawaii and or Long Beach State. I saw it earlier in the week, but appears to be changed, so not sure what's going on there. But that could definitely be exciting. You go to Honda Center, especially having grown up a Ducks fan. So get to see my school, my volleyball USC play there. I think could be pretty exciting. Then they'll also have matchups against CSUN, UCSB, Ohio State, Penn State, and a home and home with UCI. So a lot of exciting matchups this year for USC. And then in conference play, they'll also play their traditional MPSF rivals, UCLA, Pep, Pepperdine, BYU, and Stanford all twice. And then Grand Canyon, though, did cut their team last spring, which, as someone who's grew up playing volleyball and knows a couple people there, it's definitely just tough to see that, especially when they're expanding the tournament to 12 teams. But obviously, I know probably a lot more to it. I don't want to get it too into it, even though it is definitely sad to see a program like that was having success definitely have to get cut. But obviously, with all the realignment stuff, rev sharing, there's obviously a lot too with Grand Canyon now being in the Mountain West, and they cited the fact that they'd be the only men's school in the Mountain West with a men's volleyball program in there. But obviously, there's a lot more to it. But like I said, it's definitely just tough to see. And then finally, we'll talk about beach volleyball, who took part, who will take part in the AVCA Pairs Tournament in Huntsville, Alabama, on from Friday through Sunday. So I'll talk about the results from that next week. So we did not get any questions this week. That said, though, you are always welcome to be sure to be on. If you have a question that you want me to try to answer, be sure to look for my question boxes on Sundays, both on Instagram and X. Follow me at CrashLit. I post question boxes or tweets, and that's where you can ask me anything, and I will do my best to find out and answer it for you. So be sure there. So last week I went 1-0 for the women's volleyball game. So I'm now 11-3 at women's volleyball after the Trojans beat UCLA. I'm 18-5-1 on the school year and 329, 124 and 1 all time. So this week is definitely pretty busy, assuming everything works out. I will be at men's basketball tonight. Can't make women's basketball tomorrow due to Voice of College Football, but I'll be watching as soon as we sign off. Gonna try to make women's volleyball on Thursday. Football, of course, on Friday I'll be at, especially with being Parents Weekend and all the stuff going on. My brother being at USC right now. Saturday I'm gonna try to make men's water polo against UCSB, and then Sunday definitely want to make it back to Galen Center for the second men's basketball game. So obviously all that could change. If you want to see what I'm at for sure, have it confirmed the day of. I repost the graphics of the teams that I'll be attending. So if I'm not going to be there, I don't repost that official game day graphic the teams put out. But that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Be sure to check me out on We Are SC and Voice of College Football throughout the week. I'll see y'all next week back here on Behind the Caution Tape, and fight on.